I've always considered myself a lucky man. 14 years married to Nicole. A beautiful four-bedroom colonial in a quiet Virginia suburb where the neighbors wave and the HOA actually does its job. Senior project manager at Brennan and Associates Commercial Construction. Two kids who still think I'm cool enough to shoot hoops with. Lily at 12, already rolling her eyes at boys, and Owen at 9, still young enough to believe his old man knows everything. Friday evening, early October. The air had that perfect crispness to it, the kind that makes you want to sit outside with a cold one and pretend the weekend will last forever. I was doing exactly that on Walt Brennan's back patio. No relation to my firm, just a coincidence that still makes him chuckle. Walt's 63, retired from somewhere in the intelligence community. He won't say NSA directly, but he won't deny it either, which tells you everything you need to know. The man has 17 security cameras pointed at every conceivable angle of his property. Motion sensors, night vision, the whole 9 yards. Neighborhood kids call him the Watcher. I just call him Walt. "Look at this fat little bandit," Walt said, tilting his tablet toward me. The screen showed grainy night footage of the most well-fed raccoon I'd ever seen, waddling across his driveway like he owned the place. Every single night, Grant. Every single night he tears into my garbage. I'm thinking about getting one of those humane traps. I nodded, half watching, more focused on the way the beer was hitting just right after a brutal week at work. The Henderson Industrial Project was 3 weeks behind schedule, and I'd been putting out fires since Monday. Walt started scrolling backward through the footage. Nighttime. More nighttime. Then daytime crept into view. "Stop!" The word came out sharper than I intended. Walt looked up, bushy eyebrows raised. "What?" "Rewind. Go back." He complied, confusion plain on his weathered face. The footage rewound. Daytime. Clear autumn light. The camera angle captured his driveway, part of his lawn, and, I'd never really noticed before, a decent slice of my own driveway next door. A silver BMW 5 Series pulled up to my house. A man got out. Tall. Dark suit that fit too well for off the rack. He walked toward my front door with the kind of confidence that only comes from familiarity. From comfort. The timestamp read 10:07 a.m. "Keep going," I said. My voice stayed level. Steady. But my fingers had gone white around the beer bottle. Walt scrolled forward. Same car. Same man. Walking back to the BMW. The body language was different now, relaxed, almost languid. He ran a hand through his hair before sliding into the driver's seat. There was something in the way he moved, satisfied, unhurried, that made my throat constrict. Timestamp 2:14 p.m., 4 hours. "Hey, you okay?" Walt was studying my face with the kind of attention that probably made him very good at whatever he did for the NSA. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine." The lie came out smooth. Easy, the first of many. "Just thought I recognized the car. Old college buddy drives a BMW like that." "Yeah? Well, if it's your buddy, he's been visiting a lot. I've got him on camera at least a few times this month." Walt scratched his chin. "Didn't realize Nicole had so many friends stopping by during the day. Home business stuff, maybe." The question hung in the air between us, innocent on its face, devastating in its implications. "Yeah," I heard myself say. "Probably something like that." The math happened automatically. Last Tuesday. I was at the Henderson site all day, didn't leave until almost 7. The kids were at school. Nicole was supposed to be working from home. She'd told me that morning she had a conference call at 10 and would probably be stuck on Zoom until lunch. "Can you send me that file?" I asked. Walt blinked. "The raccoon footage?" "All of it. The whole week." Sure. He studied my face for a moment. "Everything okay, Grant?" I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the patio table. Just curious about something. Nicole was in the kitchen when I walked through the back door, standing at the island chopping vegetables for a stir-fry. She smiled when she saw me. That warm, familiar smile I'd fallen in love with at a college party 16 years ago. "Hey you, how's Walt's surveillance operation?" "Same as always. He's got a raccoon problem," she laughed. "That man and his cameras. You know Mrs. Patterson across the street calls him a paranoid old coot? Says he's watching everyone." She scraped the vegetables into a waiting pan, oil sizzling. "Did he show you the footage?" For a split second, something flickered across her face. So brief I might have imagined it. Or maybe I was just looking for it now. "Some of it," I said. I crossed to her and kissed her cheek. Her perfume filled my nose, something floral and expensive. Not the practical day-to-day scent she usually wore. The good stuff. The stuff she saved for date nights and special occasions. I wondered if she'd put it on at 9:55 that morning. Wondered how long she'd agonized over which underwear to wear for another man. "You okay?" Nicole was studying me. Spatula paused mid-stir. "You seem distracted." "Long week. Henderson project's been a nightmare." I moved to the cabinet for plates, grateful for the excuse to turn away. "Where are the kids?" Owen had a snack. Lily's in her room being dramatic about something Emma said at school. She rolled her eyes affectionately. Middle school politics. Apparently someone's best friend became someone else's best friend. And now there's a whole thing. Sounds exhausting. You have no idea. I spent 20 minutes on the phone with Emma's mom trying to decode the drama. She laughed again, shaking her head. Thank God we weren't like that at their age. I thought about the messages I'd soon discover on her phone. The ones where she'd written about settling and dead marriages. Wondered if she'd been dramatic as a teenager, if this capacity for deception had always been there, dormant, waiting. "Yeah," I said. "Thank God." I helped set the table. We ate dinner as a family. I listened to Lily's story about drama club auditions and helped Owen with his math homework afterward. Nicole curled up on the couch with a glass of wine and her laptop, supposedly finishing up work emails. I watched her from the kitchen doorway for a long moment. My wife of 14 years. Mother of my children. The woman I'd built a life with. That night, after the kids were asleep, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling fan as it made its slow rotations in the darkness. Nicole's breathing had already deepened into sleep. I made a decision then. A cold one. The kind of decision that separates men who react from men who plan. I would not confront her. Not yet. Not until I knew everything. The next morning I texted Walt before I even got out of bed. "How far back do your cameras store footage?" His response came within minutes. 18 months on the hard drive. Cloud backup goes back 3 years. Why? Can you share access? I think someone's been casing the neighborhood. Want to review it? It was a flimsy excuse, but Walt was too happy to finally have someone appreciate his security obsession to question it. Within an hour, I had login credentials to his entire surveillance archive. That first week, I operated on maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. After Nicole went to bed, I'd sit in my home office with the door locked, scrolling through months of footage on my laptop. The blue light from the screen was the only illumination. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the dark window, hollow eyes, jaw set hard, and not recognize myself. The silver BMW appeared 12 times over 3 months, always on weekdays. Always between 9:30 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Always when I was at work and the kids were at school. I created a spreadsheet. Dates, arrival times, departure times, duration of visits. The shortest was 2 hours and 17 minutes. The longest was 5 hours and 43 minutes. I needed to know who he was. Pete Lawson handles background checks for the subcontractors we use at the firm. Good guy, former cop, doesn't ask too many questions if you don't give him a reason to. Hey Pete, can you run a plate for me? Silver BMW, Virginia tags. I read off the number I'd captured from Walt's footage. Sure thing, give me a day. He called back in 6 hours. Plates registered to a Derek Collins, 44 years old. Business address in Arlington, home address in... I got it, I cut him off. Thanks, Pete. I owe you one. Derek Collins. I set the phone down and stared at the wall of my office for a very long time. Derek Collins wasn't a stranger. Derek Collins was married to Vanessa Collins. Vanessa Collins had been Nicole's best friend since their freshman year at UVA. The four of us had dinner together twice a month, sometimes more. I'd golfed with Derek at least a dozen times. We'd gone to their anniversary party last spring. I'd spent 45 minutes picking out a $200 bottle of wine because Nicole said Vanessa would appreciate the gesture. The betrayal doubled in an instant. Not just my wife, my friend. If you could even call him that now. I went to work the next day, sat through meetings about concrete pours and HVAC installations, reviewed blueprints until the lines blurred together, answered emails with professional courtesy, smiled at colleagues who asked how my weekend was. And inside my chest, something fundamental shifted. The hot anger I'd expected never came. Instead, there was something colder, more patient. It settled into my bones like frost into the ground. By the second week, I had a lawyer. Catherine Webb came recommended through a buddy from my Army Reserve days. Her office was in a nondescript building 20 minutes outside my usual orbit, far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. The waiting room smelled like leather and old paper, the kind of place where people came to untangle the worst messes of their lives. Mr. Parker. She stood when I entered, offering a firm handshake. Have a seat. Tell me what's going on. I laid it out. The footage, the timestamps, the realization that my wife had been conducting a long-running affair while I commuted to work and our children went to school. Catherine listened without interrupting, taking notes in a leather-bound pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. How are you holding up? The question caught me off guard. I'm functioning. That's not what I asked. I met her gaze. I'm angry, but I'm not stupid. I know that acting on anger right now would be the worst thing I could do. She nodded slowly, something like approval in her expression. You'd be surprised how many people in your situation can't make that distinction. They burst through my door ready to burn everything down. Consequences be damned. She opened a folder on her desk. Virginia's an equitable distribution state. Assets acquired during the marriage get divided fairly, though fairly doesn't always mean 50-50. Now, adultery. She looked up, her reading glasses catching the overhead light. Adultery's grounds for fault-based divorce here. More importantly, it can significantly impact alimony decisions. Judges don't look kindly on cheating spouses. What does that mean in practical terms? It means if you can prove the affair, really prove it, not just suspicious circumstances, you're looking at reduced or eliminated spousal support obligations. Maybe a more favorable property split. Certainly a stronger position in custody negotiations. Custody. The word tasted bitter. I want my kids. Primary custody. Tell me about your involvement in their lives. So I did. The school pickups and soccer practices, the homework help and bedtime routines, the weekends building Lego sets with Owen and driving Lily to drama rehearsals. The stuff fathers do when they're actually present, actually engaged. Catherine took more notes. This is good. This is very good. She set down her pen. My advice? Document everything. Dates, times, any evidence you can gather legally. Don't confront her. Don't tip your hand. The more you know before she knows you know, the stronger your position will be when we get to the table. What about custody? Virginia courts prioritize the best interests of the child. Your stable work history, involvement in their lives, the fact that you'll likely be keeping the family home, all points in your favor, especially if we can demonstrate a pattern of behavior that suggests poor judgment on her part. I wrote her a check for the retainer. Cash would have looked suspicious on our joint accounts. One more thing, Catherine said as I stood to leave. This process takes time, months, sometimes a year or more. You need to prepare yourself for that. And you need to prepare yourself to live with someone you know is betraying you, day after day, without letting on. I can do that. Can you? Her eyes were sharp. Because if you slip, if you confront her before we're ready, if you let anger get the better of you, you give away every advantage we're building. I thought about the cold things settling into my chest, the patience it brought, the clarity. I can do that, I said again. Good. Then we'll be in touch. That same week, I started auditing our finances. I had access to everything. We'd never had secrets. Online banking, credit card statements, investment accounts. Funny how that phrase kept echoing in my head. We'd never had secrets. The withdrawals appeared when I started looking for them. 200 here, 300 there, always in cash. Never enough to trigger any alerts, but consistent. I tracked them back 8 months. The total came to just over $4,700. Where does that kind of money go when you don't want anyone to know about it? I found part of the answer in her Amazon account. We shared a Prime membership, had since it was still $100 a year. There's a feature for hidden orders, stuff you purchase that doesn't show up in the regular history. Nicole had used it. Lingerie I'd never seen. A perfume that wasn't the one on her dresser. And a book. Starting Over, A Woman's Guide to Reinvention After 40. I sat in my truck in the office parking lot that day, engine off, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly and deliberately for 10 minutes straight. The world outside the windshield looked exactly the same as it always had. Somehow, that made it worse. Week 3 brought a new revelation. Walt, I need to see everything, as far back as you've got. He practically glowed. The full archive? 3 years? Whatever you have. He transferred it all to an external drive the size of a deck of cards. I took it home like it was evidence in a murder case. In a way, I suppose it was. The BMW first appeared 18 months ago. 18 months. I did the math obsessively. Before Lily's bat mitzvah, where Derek gave a toast about family and faith. Before our trip to the Outer Banks, where the 4 of us rented a beach house and I taught Owen to body surf while Derek manned the grill. Before my promotion, when Nicole threw me a surprise party and told everyone how proud she was. Before her mother's funeral, where I held her while she sobbed into my shoulder and told me I was her rock, her anchor, the only stable thing in her life. 18 months of lies. I kept building my spreadsheet. It grew to 3 tabs. 4. I cross-referenced timestamps with my calendar, with the kids' school schedules, with Nicole's supposed work obligations. Then I found the overnight bag. Footage from 11 months prior. Derek's BMW arrives at 9:47 a.m., leaves at 1:32 p.m., standard. Except 20 minutes after he left, Nicole walked out of our house carrying an overnight bag. She got in her car, she drove away. I checked my calendar for that date. I'd been at a 3-day conference in Richmond. The kids were at my parents' for the weekend. Nicole told me she'd stayed home to catch up on work. She hadn't stayed home. I sat in my office that night, the house dark and quiet around me, and imagined where she'd gone. A hotel somewhere. Maybe Derek's place if Vanessa was traveling. Maybe somewhere neither of them had any connection to. The kind of place where nobody asked questions and checkout time is flexible. The images came whether I wanted them or not. Week 4. The phone. Nicole had always been casual about her devices. left her phone charging in the kitchen, never updated her passcode from our anniversary date, October 15th, 10:15. I waited for a Saturday morning. She was in the shower, the water running loud enough to cover any sounds from downstairs. The kids were at soccer practice. I had maybe 15 minutes. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, right where it always was. I typed in 10:15, the screen unlocked. Her texts showed nothing unusual. Mom group chats, work threads, a conversation with Lily about getting a ride home from drama rehearsal. But I wasn't looking for the obvious. I found the app disguised as a calculator icon. Clever. The kind of thing you'd only know about if you were already looking for ways to hide things. I opened it. Hundreds of messages. Photos I scrolled past without letting myself focus on. Voice notes I didn't play. I didn't need to read everything. I read enough. Grant's so emotionally unavailable. Has been for years. I don't think he even sees me anymore. The marriage has been dead since before Owen started kindergarten. We're just going through the motions. He never supported my dreams. Remember when I wanted to start the interior design business? He talked me out of it. Said it was too risky. Sometimes I wonder if I settled. If I'd waited longer, held out for someone who actually understood me. I kept scrolling, my jaw aching from how hard I was clenching it. One message from 6 months ago stopped me cold. He doesn't suspect anything. He's so wrapped up in his work he barely notices me anymore. Sometimes I wonder if he'd even care if he knew. I took screenshots, dozens of them. I emailed them to a new account I'd created that morning from a device she didn't know existed. I deleted the sent items. I cleared the browser history. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, angled the same way, charging cable positioned precisely. Then I washed my hands in the kitchen sink. I don't know why. Some instinct about contamination. The shower turned off upstairs. By the time Nicole came down, toweling her hair dry, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the weekend paper. "Hey you," she said, smiling. "Want to go to brunch? The kids won't be back until noon. We could go to that place you like, the one with the crab Benedict." I smiled back. The expression fit my face the way it always had, and that's when I realized something had fundamentally changed in me. I could look at this woman, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and feel nothing but calculation. "Sure," I said. "Let me grab my jacket." Week 5 marked a shift in strategy. I could have detonated everything then. Could have thrown my phone on the table at that brunch spot and watched Nicole's world collapse over eggs and mimosas. There would have been a certain satisfaction in it. The immediate gratification of watching her face crumble. But immediate gratification wasn't what I wanted. I wanted justice. And justice required patience. Derek Collins had built himself quite a life. Partner at a mid-sized commercial real estate firm. Active in the local Rotary Club. On the board of a children's charity that did genuinely good work. I donated to it myself, twice, at events Derek organized. His reputation mattered to him, his image, the way people perceived him in the community. Good. That made it valuable. And valuable things could be taken away. I started researching alienation of affection laws. Virginia doesn't recognize them, but North Carolina does. And wouldn't you know it, Derek and Vanessa owned a beach house in the Outer Banks. Had legal residence there for tax purposes. I filed that information away. Then I made a decision about Vanessa. An anonymous email would have been easy, quick, a coward's approach. I considered it and rejected it within the same breath. Instead, I engineered a meeting. Nicole had mentioned months ago that Vanessa took Pilates at a studio near the Whole Foods on King Street, Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I took a long lunch on a Thursday and parked outside the coffee shop across the street. 20 minutes later, Vanessa walked out of the studio, yoga mat tucked under her arm. She looked tired, I noticed. The kind of tired that goes deeper than missed sleep. The kind that settles into your bones. Vanessa, hey! She turned, surprise registering on her face. Grant? What are you doing over here? Client meeting. I gestured vaguely toward the office buildings down the block. Just grabbing coffee. Join me? We stood in line together, ordered our drinks, made small talk about the kids, about work, about the restaurant she and Derek had tried the previous weekend. It was okay, she said, stirring honey into her tea. Derek loved it. I thought the risotto was overpriced. She shrugged. But you know Derek. If there's a Yelp rating over 4 stars, he has to try it. Yeah, he's always been like that. I sipped my coffee, watching her carefully. How are you guys doing? We haven't gotten together in a while. Good, fine. The response came too quickly. Busy, you know. Derek's been working crazy hours. Some big deal he's trying to close. Nicole mentioned you might be going through a rough patch. Vanessa's cup stopped halfway to her mouth. She said that? Not in so many words. Just that you seemed stressed. She was worried about you. The irony wasn't lost on me. Nicole, worried about the woman whose husband she was sleeping with. The audacity of it made my jaw tighten. That's sweet of her. Vanessa set her cup down carefully. We're fine, really. Every marriage has its ups and downs. Sure, of course. I let a beat of silence stretch between us. Hey, can I ask you something? Has Nicole seemed off to you lately? Her expression flickered, just for an instant. Off how? I don't know. Distracted. Distant. She's been working late a lot, which I get, but... I shrugged, playing the role of concerned husband. We've been married 14 years. I know her rhythms. Something feels different. Vanessa wrapped both hands around her cup like she needed the warmth, even though the shop was perfectly heated. She seems fine to me. Busy, maybe. But who isn't? When did you guys last get together? Just the two of you? She thought about it. Maybe 2 months ago, we had lunch near her office. She frowned slightly. She canceled the last couple times. Work stuff, she said. Yeah. I nodded slowly. You're probably right. I'm probably overthinking it. It's just... I let my voice trail off, shook my head. Never mind. I don't want to be that husband, the paranoid one who sees problems where there aren't any. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Her fingers had gone white around her cup. Grant, she said finally, is there something you're trying to tell me? I looked at her directly. A woman on the edge of a realization she didn't want to have. I could have pushed her over right then, could have spilled everything and watched her world collapse across a coffee shop table. But that wasn't the plan. No, I said. Nothing specific. Just stress talking, probably. I smiled, setting down my cup. I should get back. Good seeing you, Vanessa. You too. But there was something in her eyes as I said goodbye. A seed of doubt I hadn't planted. One that was already there. I wondered how long she'd been ignoring her own instincts. How many late nights and canceled dinners and unexplained absences she'd explained away, because the alternative was too terrible to consider. I walked out of that coffee shop knowing I'd set something in motion. Vanessa would be watching now, paying attention. And when the moment came to bring her the evidence, she'd be ready to believe it. Over the next 3 weeks, I watched the affair change. The BMW visits dropped from twice a week to once, then to every 10 days. Nicole's mood shifted. She became irritable over things she'd never cared about before. Dishes in the sink, grass that needed mowing, the way I chewed my food. She picked a fight with me one night over nothing. I'd left a towel on the bathroom floor. Do you think I'm your maid? She snapped. Do you think I just exist to clean up after you? I looked at her calmly. I'm sorry. I'll pick it up. That's not... She stopped, frustrated. Never mind, just forget it. She stormed off to bed. I stayed up and checked her secret app. The messages had shifted in tone. Nicole, when are we going to tell them? You said by the end of the year. Derek, it's complicated. Vanessa's sister is sick. I can't do this to her right now. Nicole, there's always an excuse. I've given you 18 months of my life, Derek. 18 months. Derek, I know, just be patient. I love you. Nicole, I've been patient. I've been so patient. And you keep moving the goalposts. Derek, come on, don't be like that. I'm trying here. There was more, but I'd seen enough. Derek Collins was never going to leave his wife. He was enjoying the affair, the excitement, the validation, the ego boost of having a woman throw her marriage away for him. But actually blowing up his comfortable life? Actually facing consequences? Never going to happen. Nicole thought she was building a future. Derek was just killing time. This changed my strategy. Nicole was already losing. She just didn't know it yet. All I had to do was accelerate the timeline and position myself to pick up the pieces. Week 9, Catherine Webb's office. I slid a manila folder across her desk. She opened it and started reading. Her eyebrows rose incrementally with each page. This is thorough, she said finally. Very thorough. I've had time. She looked at me over her reading glasses. What are your goals? I'd rehearsed this. Primary custody of the children, protection of my retirement accounts and premarital assets, minimal alimony obligations, the house. Given what you've documented here, the duration of the affair, the evidence of deception, we have a strong position. She leaned back in her chair. I have to ask, though. Do you want to try to reconcile? Counseling? Some couples do work through infidelity. No. She nodded once, no judgment in her expression. Then we proceed. I'll need to file a few preliminary motions. But there's something else you should consider. What? Derek Collins' wife. If she decides to pursue divorce as well, and if Nicole is named as a contributing factor to that marriage's dissolution, she tapped the folder. North Carolina still allows alienation of affection lawsuits. Derek and Vanessa have residence there. The beach house. Exactly. Vanessa could potentially pursue financial damages against your wife. I processed this. Another domino to set up. Thank you, Catherine. Don't thank me yet. We haven't gotten to the hard part. Week 10. The call. I dialed Vanessa's cell from my office during lunch, door closed, blinds drawn. She picked up on the third ring. Grant? Hey, Vanessa, do you have a minute? I'm at work, but sure, what's up? I need to talk to you about something, in person. It's about Derek. I paused. And Nicole. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then, when and where? We met at a park near her office. Neutral ground. Benches facing a duck pond where old men threw breadcrumbs and mothers pushed strollers along the paved paths. I brought a folder. Vanessa arrived looking like she hadn't slept. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe those seeds of doubt had been growing roots in the dark. We sat on a bench, not quite facing each other. I handed her the folder without preamble. She opened it. I watched her face as she went through the evidence, the timestamps on the surveillance footage, the printouts of messages, the financial records showing cash withdrawals and hidden purchases. Her expression didn't crumble. It hardened. Fossilized, almost. When she finished, she closed the folder and stared at the pond for a long time. The sunlight caught the tears she was refusing to let fall. How long have you known? Her voice came out rough. 10 weeks. 10 weeks. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. I've been suspicious for 6 months. Little things. He stopped wanting to... Well, he said he was tired. Work stress. I said nothing. Some silences are necessary. Why are you telling me now? She asked. Because I'm filing for divorce next week. I thought you deserved to know before it becomes public. What you do with the information is your choice. She turned to look at me then. Her eyes were dry now and hard as granite. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry it happened this way. So am I. She stood, tucking the folder under her arm. When you file, I'll file. I want to coordinate timing. I was hoping you'd say that. She started to walk away, then stopped. Grant, that feeling you had. When you first saw the footage, that cold thing in your chest. Yeah? Does it go away? I considered the question honestly. Not yet. She nodded once and walked to her car without looking back. The date we chose was deliberate. The Collins annual holiday party. December 14th. Their house decorated with tasteful wreaths and a professionally lit tree visible through the front windows. 100 guests mingling over catered hors d'oeuvres and open bar. The who's who of their social circle, business associates, neighbors, charity board members, the whole carefully curated collection of people Derek loved to impress. I arrived alone, told Nicole I had a work event running late and I'd meet her there. The truth was, I needed to walk in with clear eyes, needed to see the room the way an outsider would before I became part of the story about to unfold. Nicole found me near the coat check. She'd had a few glasses of wine already. I could tell by the slight flush of her cheeks, the extra brightness in her eyes. You made it. She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark. I was starting to think you'd be stuck all night. Wouldn't miss it. I scanned the room. Quite a turnout. Derek invited half of Arlington, I think. He's been holding court by the bar for an hour. She squeezed my arm. Go get a drink. I'll introduce you to the Hendersons later. They're deadly boring, but she asked about your firm. I got my drink, made small talk with strangers. Watched. Derek was indeed holding court by the bar, gesturing expansively as he told some story about a complicated deal he'd closed. He had that look he always got when he was the center of attention, chest puffed slightly, smile too wide. The look of a man who believed his own mythology completely. Every few minutes, his eyes would sweep the room and land briefly on Nicole. The look they shared lasted maybe half a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed. I noticed. At 7:45 p.m., Vanessa caught my eye from across the room. She was wearing a green dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Diamond earrings. Perfect hostess smile. But underneath it all, I saw steel. She gave me an almost imperceptible nod. At 8 p.m., she picked up a fork and tapped it against her wine glass. If I could have everyone's eyes for just a moment. Thank you, yes. Even you back there by the shrimp cocktail. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. People turned, wine glasses in hand, expecting the usual hostess remarks about gratitude and holiday spirit. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Derek and I have always loved hosting this party. Looking out at all your faces, our family, our friends, our community, it reminds me what the holidays are really about. She paused. Derek beamed at her from across the room. Proud husband. Perfect partner. Completely oblivious to the train hurtling toward him. Marriage is interesting, Vanessa continued. Her voice hadn't changed, but something in her posture had shifted. Straighter, harder. You build a life with someone. You trust them with everything. Your secrets, your vulnerabilities, your future. The room had grown very quiet. Someone coughed nervously. And sometimes, she turned to face Derek directly. Sometimes you find out that person has been lying to you for 18 months. That he's been sleeping with your best friend. In your bed. In your home. While you were at work or traveling or doing any of the 1,000 things that keep a marriage running. The silence became absolute. I could hear ice settling in someone's drink. Could hear the Christmas music playing softly, some cheerful carol that suddenly sounded obscene. Derek's face went through about 6 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, horror, terror, landing somewhere between denial and absolute panic. "Vanessa, honey, what are you—" His voice came out strangled. "This is— you're— I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. I know about you and Nicole Parker. I've known for weeks. I've seen the evidence. Timestamps, photos, messages, every detail." She looked at the crowd, at the frozen faces and dropped jaws and phones appearing in hands. "I thought everyone here deserved to know what kind of man they've been drinking with. What kind of man sits on a charity board and preaches about family values while conducting an 18-month affair with a married mother of 2? Derek was shaking his head, hands raised like he could physically push away her words. This is crazy. I don't know where— Stop." The single word cut through his protest like a blade. "Don't embarrass yourself by lying when I have it all documented. Every visit, every message, every time you walked into Grant Parker's house." The room's attention swung to Nicole like a spotlight. My wife stood frozen near the Christmas tree, her wine glass tilted at a dangerous angle, red liquid threatening to spill onto the white carpet. Her face had gone the color of old paper. Then she saw me. I was standing by the front door holding my coat. I hadn't taken it off. I'd known I wouldn't be staying long. "You knew," she whispered. The words barely carried across the room. "Oh God, Grant, you knew." "I know everything," I said. My voice came out steady, almost peaceful. 3 months of waiting, of pretending, of living alongside a lie. And now, finally, the truth was out. "We should talk tomorrow. My attorney will send over the paperwork." I turned and walked out. The cold December air hit my face like a blessing. Behind me, I heard Derek's voice rising in desperate denial. "This is insane. Someone's feeding you lies." And Nicole's sob cracking through the chaos, and the rising murmur of 100 guests witnessing the most spectacular social implosion any of them had ever seen. I got in my truck and drove home. The whole way, I felt nothing but an immense, hollow calm. Like the moment after a surgery when the pain hasn't hit yet, when everything is just quiet and blank and waiting. The fallout came faster than I expected. Derek's firm asked him to resign within 2 weeks. Too many conservative clients. Too much bad press. The charity board sent a politely worded email thanking him for his service and requesting his immediate departure. His name disappeared from their website within 48 hours. I heard through the grapevine, our mutual acquaintances were suddenly very eager to share gossip, that Derek tried to spin the story at first. Claimed Vanessa was unstable. Claimed the evidence was fabricated. Claimed he was the victim of a jealous husband's vendetta. Nobody bought it. The documentation was too thorough. And people talk. Vanessa filed in North Carolina, where her attorneys pursued alienation of affection with surgical precision. The beach house became a battleground. The settlement negotiations became a bloodletting. Derek's lawyer called it vindictive. Vanessa's lawyer called it appropriate compensation for 18 months of deception. Nicole moved out of our house on December 28th. I wasn't there. I'd taken the kids to my parents for the day. Couldn't stomach watching her pack up pieces of our life while pretending everything was civil. When I came home, the closets were half empty. Her bathroom drawers were bare. The jewelry box on her dresser was gone. But she'd left our wedding photo on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long time. The two of us, young and hopeful and absolutely certain about our future, before I put it face down in a drawer. My parents had questions. Lots of questions. "How long did you know?" my mother asked, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Before the party. How long?" "About 3 months." 3 months? She shook her head. "How did you manage? Living with her, eating dinner with her, sleeping in the same bed, knowing what she was doing?" I focused on the end game. My father put a hand on my shoulder. He'd been quiet through most of the conversation, but his grip said everything. You did what you had to do, son. Protected yourself. Protected those kids. That's what matters. I wish it hadn't come to this. So do we. My mother's eyes were wet. We loved Nicole. We really did. And all this time She stopped, pressed her lips together. Does she know about the lawsuit? Vanessa's pursuing her too. Alienation of affection. Nicole's going to be named. My father exhaled slowly. That's going to get ugly. It already is. The kids came through harder than I expected. Owen was confused at first. He kept asking when Mom was coming home, when things would go back to normal. I didn't have easy answers for him. I just held him when he cried and told him that both his parents loved him, that none of this was his fault, that we'd figure it out together. Lily was older. Old enough to understand what affair meant. Old enough to be angry. Dad, why can't you guys just work it out? People fight. People forgive. We were sitting on the back porch, the evening cold enough that our breath made little clouds. She'd asked to talk, just the two of us. Some promises can't be unbroken, sweetheart. I wish that wasn't true, but it is. Emma's parents got divorced 2 years ago, and now her dad's remarried, and everyone acts like nothing happened. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. Why can't we be like that? Because every situation is different. Your mom and I struggled for words that would be honest without being cruel. She made choices that hurt our family in ways I can't get past. That's not about forgiveness. It's about trust. Once trust is gone, really gone, you can't pretend it back into existence. Was it really 18 months? I looked at my 12-year-old daughter, already carrying weights no kid should have to lift. The betrayal wasn't just mine. It was theirs too. 18 months of their mother living a double life, smiling at family dinners, tucking them into bed, all while conducting an affair with a man they called Uncle Derek. Yeah, I said finally. It was. I don't want to see her. Lily's voice had gone hard. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Hey. I put my arm around her shoulders. Your mom made terrible choices, that's true. But she loves you. She's always loved you. And whatever happens between her and me, she's still your mother. You don't have to forgive what she did. But don't close that door forever. Not yet. She leaned into me, and I felt her crying. Silent tears that shook her shoulders. I'm sorry, Dad. You have nothing to be sorry for. I feel like I should have seen it. Should have known something was wrong. I held her tighter. That's not your job. That was never your job. You're a kid. You're supposed to trust that the adults in your life are telling the truth. None of this is on you. She hugged me then, tight and fierce. And I held her and let myself feel something other than cold calculation for the first time in months. Nicole tried to contact me repeatedly in those early weeks. Texts I didn't answer. Calls I let go to voicemail. One voicemail broke through my defenses. I listened to it once, late at night, after the kids were asleep. Grant, please. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know what I did is unforgivable. But if you could just... I need to explain, not to excuse it, just to explain. Her voice cracked. I got lost somewhere. I don't know how it happened. One day I was happy and then one day I wasn't, and instead of talking to you, I ran. I ran to someone who told me everything I wanted to hear. A pause. Heavy breathing. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to understand that I never stopped. I deleted it before she could finish the sentence. Whatever she never stopped, it wasn't enough to stop her from spending 4 hours at a time in our bed with my friend while I thought we were building a life together. I communicated through Catherine from then on. Derek, faced with the destruction of his reputation, did exactly what I expected. He abandoned Nicole completely. The messages I intercepted, yes, I was still monitoring, call it insurance, showed his transformation from romantic hero to cowardly snake in real time. I think we need some space. This isn't a good time for me to be involved in drama. Vanessa's attorneys are saying if we're still in contact, it hurts my case. And finally, the message that must have hit Nicole like a truck. I've been thinking about things and I realize now that I was vulnerable and you pursued me. I take responsibility for my choices, but I also need to be honest that I always loved Vanessa. What we had was a mistake. I'm sorry. He was rewriting history while the ink was still wet, making himself the victim, Nicole the predator. It was cowardly and predictable and perfect. Nicole was left with nothing. No affair partner, no marriage, no friends, because choosing sides was inevitable, and most people chose the wronged parties. The divorce settlement came through in March. I got primary custody. Nicole's work schedule was less stable than mine, and when the guardian ad litem interviewed the children separately, they both expressed a preference for staying in the family home. With me. Nicole got weekends and Wednesday nights. I kept the house. Alimony was minimal. Catherine's thorough documentation of the affair made the judge less than sympathetic to my wife's financial interests. I watched her sign the papers in Catherine's conference room. She looked smaller than I remembered. Deflated. The confident woman who'd laughed at brunch spots and planned dinner parties had been replaced by someone I barely recognized. "Grant," she said, after the lawyer stepped out. "Can we talk, just for a minute?" "What's left to say?" "I don't know." She shook her head. "I keep trying to figure out where it went wrong. We were happy once. Weren't we?" I considered the question. 14 years of marriage, a decade and a half of shared meals and family vacations and late nights with sick children and early mornings with coffee and the newspaper. "Yeah," I said. "We were." "Then how did we end up here?" I didn't have an answer she'd want to hear. The truth was, I'd asked myself the same question 1,000 times, and the only conclusion I'd reached was this. You can't know what's in someone else's heart. You can only trust them to tell you and hope they don't lie. I don't know, Nicole. I really don't. I left her sitting there alone and walked out to my truck. 1 year later, summer evening, cold beer, Walt's patio. The old man was showing me footage again, this time of an entire family of raccoons that had taken up residence under his garden shed. Mama and 3 kits, waddling across his lawn like they paid rent. "You ever catch that first one?" I asked. "The fat guy from before?" Walt shrugged. "Nah, learn to live with him, I guess. Sometimes pests aren't worth the energy, you know? They move on eventually, find somewhere else to cause trouble." I thought about that. About Derek, who'd relocated to Florida after Vanessa's lawsuit bled him dry. About Nicole, who was living in an apartment across town, rebuilding something resembling a life. About the email Derek sent me once, something about no hard feelings and hoping we could move forward as adults. I deleted it without responding. Some things don't deserve acknowledgement. "Yeah," I said. "Sometimes they're not worth it." The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. From my house across the way, I could hear Lily practicing piano, something classical she was learning for the spring recital. Owen was probably in his room, building something complicated out of Lego, waiting for me to come admire it. My kids were okay, adjusting. We had dinner together most nights, now that Nicole's presence wasn't filling the silences with tension and unspoken grievance. We laughed more than we used to, talked more. Last weekend, Owen asked if he could invite a girl from his class to his birthday party, and the way he blushed told me everything about where the next few years were heading. Life goes on. That's the brutal truth of it. You think the world will stop when betrayal cracks it open, but it doesn't. It just keeps spinning, indifferent to your pain, and eventually you either spin with it or you fall off. I chose to keep spinning. Another round? Walt asked, holding up an empty bottle. Sure. He disappeared inside to grab more beers from his fridge. I sat alone on his patio, watching the fireflies rise from the grass as dusk settled over the neighborhood. The same view I'd had that night a year ago, when my life was about to change and I didn't know it yet. I'd lost something in those 12 weeks of surveillance and strategy. Some capacity for naive trust, maybe. Some version of myself that believed people meant what they said and kept the promises they made. But I'd gained something too. A harder edge. A clearer vision. The understanding that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day, to be honest. To be present. To put someone else's heart above your own convenience. Nicole made different choices. So did Derek. And they paid for them in ways they're still calculating. I didn't set out for revenge. I set out for justice. And I got it. Walt came back with 2 cold bottles, condensation dripping down the glass. He handed me one and settled into his lawn chair with a satisfied sigh. You seem better, he said, than you did last year. I'm getting there. Good. He clinked his bottle against mine. To moving forward. To moving forward, I echoed. And I meant it. The raccoon footage was still playing on Walt's tablet, those fat little bandits waddling through the motion sensor lights. One of them looked directly at the camera, eyes glowing white in the night vision, completely unconcerned with being watched. I smiled despite myself. Dumb animals. No idea their whole world is on display for anyone who cares to look. Then again, neither did Nicole. I finished my beer as the last light faded from the sky, and I felt something settle in my chest. Not the cold calculation that had sustained me through the worst of it. Something different. Something warmer. Maybe peace. Maybe just exhaustion finally catching up. Either way, I'd take it. The next morning I made breakfast for the kids. Pancakes with chocolate chips for Owen, scrambled eggs for Lily, who was watching carbs, for reasons I didn't entirely understand but chose not to question. Dad, Owen said through a mouthful of pancake, can we go to the pool today? Sure, bud, after you clean your room. It's not that messy. Owen. Okay. Lily looked up from her phone. Can Emma come? If her parents say yes. Normal morning, normal conversations. The kind of domestic routine I'd taken for granted for 14 years, never imagining it could be stripped away so easily. Nicole would be picking them up tomorrow for her Wednesday. They'd have dinner at her apartment, help with homework, watch TV until bedtime. Then I'd get them back, and the cycle would continue. Co-parenting with someone who betrayed you is a special kind of torture. Every handoff is a reminder. Every text about schedules or school events is a splinter working its way under your skin. But the kids need both of us. And I refuse to be the parent who poisons them against their mother, no matter how much she might deserve it. That's the difference between revenge and justice, I think. Revenge is about making the other person suffer. Justice is about making things right. I made things right. Now I'm building something new. Last week I went on a date. First one since the divorce. Her name is Rachel. Paralegal at a firm downtown. We met at a happy hour organized by a mutual friend who clearly had matchmaking intentions. Nothing special. Just drinks at a wine bar, 2 hours of conversation about jobs and hobbies and favorite shows to binge. She laughed at my jokes. I laughed at hers. When we said goodnight, she touched my arm and said she'd had a really nice time. I drove home feeling something unfamiliar. Possibility, maybe. The strange lightness of realizing your story isn't over. It's just entering a new chapter. I don't know if anything will come of it. I'm not rushing, not looking to fill a void with the first person who shows interest. But it was nice to remember that I'm still capable of connection. That Nicole didn't break that part of me, no matter how hard she tried. Some nights, late, I still think about the moment I saw that BMW pull up in Walt's footage. The way my stomach dropped. The cold certainty that settled in before my brain even caught up. I've replayed that moment 1,000 times. Wondered if I could have seen signs earlier, if I'd been paying better attention. Wondered if Nicole was right, if I'd been so wrapped up in work that I stopped seeing her. Maybe? Probably. Marriage is never a simple equation of innocence and guilt. But here's the thing. I didn't make her do what she did. I might have been distant. I might have taken her for granted. Those are sins of omission, failures of attention. She chose to lie. She chose to deceive. She chose to build a secret life on the foundation of the one we'd built together. Those are choices I can't forgive. And I've made peace with that. The last thing I want to say is this. To anyone reading this who suspects their spouse is cheating, trust your gut. That cold feeling in your stomach isn't paranoia. It's your subconscious putting together pieces your conscious mind doesn't want to see. Don't confront. Don't accuse. Don't give them the chance to cover their tracks. Document. Prepare. Consult a lawyer. And when you're ready, when you've built your case and protected your assets and made sure your kids won't be casualties of someone else's selfishness, then you strike. Not in anger, not in revenge, in cold, calculated, methodical pursuit of justice. It won't heal the wound. Nothing will heal that wound completely. Some scars are permanent. But there's a satisfaction in knowing you didn't roll over. You didn't beg. You didn't let someone who betrayed you walk away clean. You made them face consequences. And then you moved on with your life. That's what I did. That's what you can do too. The raccoons are still living under Walt's shed. He put out a trail camera last month, purely out of curiosity at this point. Sometimes he sends me clips of them. The kits getting bigger, the mama teaching them to forage, the whole family waddling in formation like a furry little parade. They'll move on eventually, he tells me. Once the babies are grown. That's how these things work. I nod and watch the footage and think about predators and prey and the way nature finds its balance. Nicole was a predator, in her way, hunting for something our marriage couldn't provide, taking what she wanted without regard for the damage left behind. I was her prey. For 18 months, I walked around oblivious while she fed on my trust. But prey can evolve. Prey can learn. Prey can develop claws of their own. That's the story, really. Not of revenge, of evolution. Of a man who woke up one Friday night to footage of a fat raccoon and found out his whole life was built on lies. And then decided to do something about it. The fireflies are out again tonight. Same patio, same view, same old man showing me footage of critters I couldn't care less about. But the beer is cold, and the kids are safe inside my house, and tomorrow is a new day with no betrayals waiting to ambush me.